Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Friday, June 29th, 2012, and I'm Darko. This is my website, ggnonline.com. There's a poll up there, you can check on it and vote how long until a drone kills the first American on American soil. So far, the majority are saying within the next year, followed by the next 2 years. You can follow GGN with your email address, also on YouTube, ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. And if you'd like to help, you can donate right there. So, and there's also a little news archive there. So, I'm ready to go here, and we're going to cover the economy. And the biggest news, of course, is Obamacare approved. It was kind of shelved for a while there, and now it's back from the dead. So, and a little bit of eugenics, because you have financial warfare, and then you have social warfare, you have eugenics, and it kind of all just is immersed, right, in the same global agenda. So it says here, Obamacare approved, IRS to force Americans to buy health insurance. It says it's a victory for Obama and a travesty for the middle class. The Supreme Court upheld Obama's health care mandate, empowers the IRS to begin to regulate America's health care by 2014. Expect IRS thugs armed with shotguns knocking at your door to fine you almost $700 a person or $2,000 per household for failure to purchase health insurance. If you fail to pay the outrageous fine, expect to be sued by the IRS. It says here that revised healthcare laws remove the penalty of almost $250,000 in imprisonment up to 5 years. It says here this ruling allows the federal government to force citizens to enter a contract with private corporations to buy health insurance. This is happening just days before the 4th of July, when Americans won its independence from British tyranny, and now we face the same tyranny today. It says here by 2014, all Americans will have to submit or face being fined and sued by the Internal Revenue Service. The American people are already struggling financially with record unemployment, inflation, and trillions of dollars in national debt. By the time health insurance becomes mandatory, the middle class will be financially bankrupt. This is the reason why the military and police are preparing for martial law in the U.S. streets, says because people will revolt against the system that has basically turned people into financial slaves. So it says here that they're conditioning Americans with checkpoints and speed traps, army drones to spy on us. We're going to cover all this, rolling out the tanks and putting military goons on residential streets to prepare us for what is to come in the future. It says here the Bilderberg Group discussed in Spain about wanting to level America into a third world impoverished nation where we're all poor under world government dictatorship. It says here soon the Americans' standard of living will drop significantly, and it won't just be the standard of living, it will be their age of death, right? Their basically the average lifespan. It says here services will be cut. We're going to get into that too, death pathway and stuff like that. Taxes will be increased until we become so poor that we are unable to fight, and resistance will be futile. As Americans issue split decision on healthcare ruling, nearly 2/3 believe politics played too great a role. So it says Americans are sharply divided over Thursday's Supreme Court decision on the 2010 healthcare law, with 46% agreeing and 46% disagreeing with the High Court's ruling that the law is constitutional. Then you have from the Daily Bail, Obamacare complicated. Check out the flow chart. And yeah, there's our buddy, the IRS, right there. But it's just a god-awful mess. And you have Secretary of Health and Human Services in the middle. All these different vested interests, all these different bureaucracies. And the biggest invested interest that helped write the bill was the insurance companies. And they're the ones that are going to basically, how could you say, not profit. Well, they will profit, but they're going to get the best advantage from this, right? And if you would like an anarchist perspective on the whole Obamacare thing, I think Stefan Molyneux did a pretty good analysis of this. I think he held back a lot. I think he's gone over it and made his point so many times, his argument, that he was actually kind of just laid back about it. So it's kind of nice. It's 18 minutes, not too long. The truth about Obamacare, yes, it's even worse than you think. And right here in the description, he puts in there the 6 facts that he presents in his argument. So fact 1, there is no law in the U.S. anymore. Basically what he's saying is that if they could just do anything, then there's no law, right? And it's tricky because, in quote, in a stateless society, there would be what? No law. Well, there would still be common law. See, this isn't common law. This is political law. That's why you have pigs, political law enforcement, and the like that are going to be enforcing this, federal agents and that. So in other words, what he's saying is that you might as well just have no government, because right here you have a dictatorship with, quote, laws, right? They have laws that basically write in a dictatorship. So we have here Obamacare is an admission that all previous government health care programs have failed. So, and this is true. I remember the recording, about Nixon and stuff like that, getting people on Medicaid. It doesn't really matter whether it's good or not. And in fact, costs have already doubled from initial estimates, and that's usually how it works. As soon as this gets closer to fruition, oh yeah, some hidden costs. Sorry, guys. Fact 4, 70% plus of healthcare issues result from individual choice. So the thing about it, he's talking about smoking, drinking, eating basically a lot of bad food and stuff like that. You can actually help. But a lot of these people that are going to, quote, benefit from this are not going to be doing anything to help their own health, right? So it says here the inability to discriminate on pre-existing conditions is an essential driver of healthcare cost. So I think what he's saying there is it's not very free market. It says here that the fines for non-compliance are destined to rise enormously. We have 15 reasons why the Obamacare decision is a mind-blowing disaster for America. It was actually, it says here it was voted 5-4 decision to uphold the vote. And it says here, the bill, it says here the swing vote was Chief Justice John Roberts, who was appointed by George Bush, W. Bush. And not that you'd have any confidence in the judicial system as it stands, just based off past history and their track record. It says here, after the vote today, it is hard to have any faith in the U.S. Supreme Court. I guess they're saying because he was quote conservative. According to the Supreme Court, the federal government has the power to force you to buy private goods and services. And it goes on and says here that it's another step away from individual liberty, another step towards a nanny state. I hate that word. But it says here IRS is now going to be given the task of hunting down and penalizing Americans. And it says here, in fact, the Obama administration has given the IRS $500 million extra outside the normal appropriation process to help them enforce the provisions of Obamacare they're in charge of overseeing. It imposes more than 20 new taxes on the American people. And you can click the link there. If you click the title of this article, you can find it and check it out. So it says here, number 5, an attempt to control costs and promote efficiency. Obamacare limits the treatment options that doctors and patients can consider. In other words, the death pathway, right? The British system, this is likely to result in a decrease in life expectancy. That's what I was talking about in the United States in the beginning of this video. So yeah, it's going to send health insurance premiums soaring, especially for younger Americans. And, it's going to crush small businesses, as they say. And number 9, Obamacare is going to make the emerging doctor shortage in America a lot worse. So hundreds of thousands of doctors are leaving the medical profession because of this. It says here it's already forced the cancellation of dozens of doctor-owned hospitals. And it says here that the following is one example from the Alliance Defense Fund. It's an insidious little provision. It says here, did you know that this bill, you'll have to pay for life-saving drugs, but life drugs are free. So 100% free. If this plan were really about health care, it wouldn't be about, it would be the other way around. So yeah, it's like robbing from the future to pay for the living. So and it just turns into a god-awful mess. It's not even just politics, it's generational. 13 reasons why the revolution might start with Obamacare. Go in there and check that out. I'll just name a few and you can hopefully go in there and check it out. It says here that's a direct tax which is unconstitutional under Article 1, Section 9. And you can go in there and read that. It says here it violates states' rights since federal government does not have the constitutional authority to take over healthcare as stated in the 10th Amendment outlined in the Bill of Rights. This mandate is involuntary servitude or slavery to big banks and insurance industries, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall be duly convicted. Basically, the 13th Amendment. So yeah, that's the federal government's 4th of July Independence Day present to Americans. It's pretty crazy. I mean, you think the timing of this was just happenstance? I bet it isn't. Let's just show you. Just give you a big middle finger right in front of your face. Stagnating life expectancies in the United States. Poor U.S. citizens live 5 years less than the affluent, but they don't talk, what about the middle class, right? So despite modest gains in lifespan over the past century, the United States still trails many of the world countries when it comes to life expectancy. We remember this article, top doctors chilling claim the NHS kills off 130,000 elderly patients every year. It says here, a professor says doctors use death pathway to euthanasia of elderly. Says here that Liverpool care pathway, death pathway, may be slippery slope to backdoor euthanasia. This is from 2009 from the Telegraph. Says here that the patient assessment selects those deemed close to death for withdrawal of food and fluids or being placed on a continuous sedation until they die off. Next up, we have another little example. Doctors said this individual was a typical lazy teenager. Actually, she had an aggressive form of cancer. So it goes on here. It says that she was finally diagnosed after she had an MRI scan following a fall. So basically, she was left undiagnosed for 6 months after doctors mistook her symptoms for typical teenager laziness. So as cancer rates soar due to the eugenics and that, I see these articles, European meeting to be held to raise awareness of the eugenic current of European society held in Strasbourg, France. It's hosted by the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, or PACE, this week to address the alleged eugenic current of European society and eugenics and human rights issues of prenatal screening. It says here, currently the highest court in Europe is considering a complaint from a woman who claims that she was not given a prenatal screening which would have revealed her daughter's Down syndrome and thus allow her to choose to abort her child. They didn't go into this, which is what? Scottish toddlers to be tested to see if they will grow up to be drug addicts or criminals. So they're going to basically examine them to determine their capacity for violent crime, to be violent. But what happens when this comes to the UK? Thailand violent students to be drafted into our army automatically. And another possibility is this. Desperate Europeans try to sell kidneys and lungs being offered for as much as $250,000 as Europeans are grappling with the economic misery. Illegal organ sales are on the rise with desperate sellers willing to basically part with their kidneys, corneas, bone marrow, and even lungs to put food on the table. It says here, organized criminal groups are preying upon the vulnerable on both sides of the supply chain. So they're not just talking about Israel, they're talking about internet ads spotted across Italy, Spain, Greece, Russia. And, people leave comments about euthanasia. I don't, it's like I don't have a moral issue with somebody carrying out euthanasia as long as there's some kind of consent there. The only issue I have for it, or with it, and that's why I bring it up, is when it's in the government's hands, where we have a government legislating morality. They can't do that, like the death penalty. So I don't support the death penalty. With euthanasia, if you're declared a violent or criminal or deviant or drug, going to be a drug dealer, well then they go ahead and euthanize you, and then they can sell your body parts. And that's probably already going on in Asia and parts of the world. But what happens when people want to sell their entire bodies? Right, a one-time donation, or they could just sell their entire body and have it just basically, as they say, cannibalized for different parts. I mean, it sounds nice on the surface to help out your family and stuff like that, but that's talk about preying on the vulnerable, man. Then we have this guy, Jim Rogers, saying that financial Armageddon will happen despite the EU deal. Says the solution to too much debt is not more debt. 2 suicides in 2 days. Greece sees social backlash of crisis. I guess basically they leapt to their death. One of them was a 70-year-old man who jumped from his flat after a court clerk stopped by to issue him an eviction notice on Friday. 17 reason to be extremely concerned about the second half of 2012. Look at this. The IMF research paper showed banking crisis is far more likely to start in September than any other month. It says here, Moody's downgraded the credit ratings of 15 major global banks. I guess this organization or website, Leap, issued a red alert to the global financial system for this fall. It says here they're warning that the second half of 2012 will represent a major inflection point for the global